This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
African Union peacekeepers have come under renewed attack in Somalia's capital. Ugandan forces were a prime target. They were attacked in their base in Mogadishu by fighters from the former military wing of the Islamic Courts Union. At least 10 people are reported to have been killed, mostly civilians, with a dozen others wounded. And a spokesman for the Al-Shabaab militia is warning that attacks will continue until, in his words, Somalia is liberated. Al Jazeera's Mohammed Adaw reports.
In war-torn Mogadishu, battles like these are a daily occurrence. Here, gunmen engage Somali and Ethiopian troops in combat. And every clash consumes its usual victims, civilians. 18 years after the conflict began, Somalis still endure widespread abuse from all sides. No one is being held accountable, at least for now. In recent days, Somali gunmen widened their fighting to include Ugandan troops deployed by the African Union and stationed in the capital. The African Union forces are now seen as legitimate targets in a city where forces from Ethiopia, one of AU's member states, are also engaged in this prolonged war. The Ugandan troops were attacked on Monday night. They exchanged fire with a large group of insurgents who raided their base. The assault was claimed by the Islamist Al-Shabaab militia, the former military wing of the Islamic Courts Union that ruled in 2006. As attacks by insurgents worsen by the day, so does Somalia's fragility and insecurity. According to international rights groups, at least 6,000 civilians have died in the fighting over the past year. Up to 1 million others remain displaced, leading desperate and marginalized lives within their own country. Mohammed Adaw, Al Jazeera.
ونبدأ مدار الليلة من لبنان حيث أصيب
20 Lebanese were injured during clashes in some of Beirut's streets following Nasrallah's speech. After the political storm calmed down, the new Lebanese president settled down in Babda Palace, which remained vacant for 6 months. The Lebanese president, Michel Suleiman, started his presidential duties by holding consultation with legislators to decide on the new prime minister, who will be assigned with the task of forming a new government on Wednesday in the framework of the Doha Agreement, which ended 1.5 years of political struggle. Taking over the presidential office coincided with the commemoration of the 8th anniversary of liberating southern Lebanon by Hezbollah. Secretary General Nasrallah gave a speech saying that Hezbollah does not want to rule Lebanon and that he believes Lebanon is a pluralistic and diverse country, as we mentioned in the speech of President Michel Suleiman.
بلد متنوع ومتعدد كما لم تفته الإشادة بالخطاب التوافقي للرئيس ميشيل سليمان.
Taking advantage of the anniversary of liberating Lebanon from the Israeli occupation, Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah stated several positions pertaining to the Lebanese internal affairs, in which it became clear that he is persistent in his call for real power sharing through the national unity government. Nasrallah said that the Doha Agreement to form the new government is not a victory for the opposition over the government loyalists, rather, it's a victory for all Lebanese.
على لبنان ولا نريد أن نحكم لبنان ولا نريد أن نفرض فكرة.
We do not want to take over the authority in Lebanon, nor do we want to control Lebanon, nor do we want to rule Lebanon, nor do we want to impose our ideology or agenda on the Lebanese nation, because we believe that Lebanon is a special country, diverse country, and pluralistic country. This country cannot have a future without the participation of everyone. It has become evident in the Doha negotiations and in the Doha agreement that the opposition did not stage a coup. We went there because we wanted to rescue Lebanon from what is more dangerous.
لأننا نريد أن ننقذ لبنان مما هو أخطر.
Pertaining to the latest events, Nasrallah said that everyone has wounds and called for healing these wounds through actions. He also stressed that the blood of the martyrs from all parties and religious groups has saved Lebanon from entering into a long and dark tunnel.
لا يجوز استخدام سلاح المقاومة لأي مكسب سياسي داخلي، ولكن أيضاً
the resistance weapons should not be used to achieve internal political gains. Also, states' weapons should not be used to settle scores with an opposition political group. States' weapons should not be used against the resistance and its weapons.
Nasrallah said that the election of the new Lebanese president, General Michel Suleiman, is a victory for all Lebanese and a source of new hope. This morning, Suleiman has taken over his presidential duties by moving into Ba'abda Palace, where he was received by honor guards and a 21-gun salute. Suleiman then moved to his office and received the Medal of the Lebanese Order of Merit and the Medal of the National Order of the Cedar Knight grade from the head of the protocol office of the presidential palace. Suleiman started his duties immediately without receiving public congratulations, except from senior employees in the presidential palace. Suleiman said that Wednesday will be the first day to start the consultations about the formation of a new national unity government. What was interesting in Nasrallah's speech was that he considered the election law, which was agreed on in Doha, as a temporary agreement and called for everyone to find a new and fair law that will be the key to establishing the state institutions. The talks about the release of the 2 Israeli soldiers captured by Hezbollah have dominated major news headlines in Israel. The Secretary General for Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, announced yesterday that a prisoner swap deal with Israel has become imminent. The news, which was quickly confirmed by Israeli media outlets, has stirred strong reaction among the Israeli public, which seems to be rather disoriented. Sharuk Assad reports from occupied Jerusalem.
The news regarding the possibility of reaching a prisoner swap deal with Hezbollah have dominated Israeli newspapers, including Haaretz, which confirmed that a deal with Hezbollah has become imminent. According to the deal, the 2 Israeli soldiers captured by Hezbollah will be released in exchange for the Lebanese prisoners Samir Kintar and Rasim Nasser, and 4 other fighters from Hezbollah, as well as the bodies of 10 Lebanese fighters. Meanwhile, Israel confirmed that no Palestinian prisoners are included in the deal. The Israeli public, whose defense forces have been rocked since the capturing of their soldiers and their shortcomings in the war, seems interested in the news but rather disoriented. Over the past few years, the political leadership in Israel made certain that no negotiations will take place with those it described as enemies, and that Israel will bring back its captured soldiers by force. However, Israel is now engaged in indirect negotiations with Hezbollah, Damascus, and Hamas.
The issue is not whether to negotiate with Hezbollah and his soldiers, whose hands are full of blood, but the important thing is that we always negotiate when we are weak.
The Israelis realize the weakness of their leadership and know very well their shortcomings. Ehud Olmert is trying to make an achievement that will provide a cover-up for his shortcomings and scandals.
Olmert is trying to make achievements in major issues, including the prisoner swap deal with Hezbollah, the cooling-off period with Hamas, and the peace negotiations with Syria. Olmert wants to distract the public from the ongoing investigation, which will enable him to extend his term in office.
The priority for the Israeli Prime Minister in these days is how to survive at the internal level, which sets the perimeters for any talks about the prisoner swap deal with Hezbollah and the peace process with Syria and other issues. Sharuk Assad, Dubai TV, Occupy Jerusalem.
It also seems that the political life for Ehud Olmert is ending soon. Olmert has drowned an additional inch deeper in the quagmire of his scandals. This news comes after U.S. businessman Morris Polanski announced that he has given Olmert donations. Polanski, who was a main witness in Olmert's case, told the investigators that Olmert has received money from him personally and from donations he collected in the U.S. He added that Olmert received cash because, according to Polanski, Olmert doesn't like checks. This scandal overshadows Olmert's political credibility, which may hamper peace efforts between Israel and Syria. If successful, the negotiations may turn the entire strategic situation in the region upside down. This news comes in a statement that was issued by Israel's infrastructure minister Benjamin Ben-Eliezer, who said that a peace with Damascus will isolate Iran and will silence Hezbollah. Ben-Eliezer further said that Israel is willing to open the borders with Syria and end the state of hostility with Damascus. The news of peace efforts between Syria and Israel has echoed the most in the occupied Syrian Golan Heights, which is considered to be a core issue in the negotiation process. While Israeli public polls are showing that the vast majority of Israelis don't support the return of the Golan Heights to Syria, the residents here renewed their commitment to their Syrian identity and nationality. Mohammed El-Sayed reports from the Quneitra border crossing in the occupied Syrian Golan Heights.
Painful concessions. This is how the decision makers in Israel describe the ongoing talks between Israel and Syria.
From a Syrian perspective, the talks about peace include the complete return of the Golan Heights to Syria.
According to the public polls, the vast majority of Israelis oppose the return of the Golan Heights to Syria because they say it threatens Israel's security. This comes as the far right wing continues to lobby support against the Israeli Prime Minister, who is losing momentum amidst the legal battle.
Olmert is tired and exhausted from all these wars and shortcomings he sustained. This, along with the bribery scandal, makes him unable to declare a deal like this.
Meanwhile, the residents of the occupied Golan Heights, who are anxiously following the diplomatic developments between Israel and Syria, doubt that Israel has serious intentions to completely withdraw from their occupied land. This news comes as ambiguity continues to overshadow any political maneuver launched by Israel. Will Israel withdraw to the borders of July 4th, 1967, or only withdraw to those borders created under the terms of the British Mandate, which don't include any Syrian territories, extending to the shores of Lake Tiberias?
We demand the Israeli Authority offer a declaration of good intentions regarding the peace process. First, we call for the release of all Syrian prisoners held in Israeli prisons. Second, we call for the opening of the Quneitra border crossing to all Arab Syrian citizens from the occupied Golan Heights, so they can return to the Arab Republic of Syria, their homeland and mother country.
This is the last border crossing point to Syria, where crossing is not allowed except in extremely rare cases. In addition, no vehicles, except those utilized by international forces, are allowed to come close to the border crossing point.
According to a report released by the UN, thousands of Palestinians in the West Bank are threatened by forced migration due to Israelis' decision to destroy more than 3,000 Palestinian buildings, including entire residential neighborhoods.
Israeli human rights organizations accuse Tel Aviv of imposing a policy of silent, forceful migration against Palestinians in the West Bank.
إسرائيل لن تسلم يهود والسامرة ولا غزة إلى أي سلطة أخرى لأن لأمتنا الحق التاريخي في هذه الأرض ولأن ذلك.
Israel will not hand over Judea and Samaria or Gaza to any other authority because our Jewish nation has a historical right to this land and because it is necessary for our national security. This statement was made by the former Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin many decades ago, but it seems that this was more than an opinion. It was a political vision that has been implemented on the ground since Israel can no longer claim that Palestine is a land without a people for a people without a land. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in the West Bank released a report saying that thousands of Palestinians are threatened with forceful migration due to the Israeli decision to destroy 3,000 Palestinian buildings, which include the removal of entire residential areas in the West Bank. According to the report, children will be harmed the most, but the occupation authorities justify their decision based on the fact that these buildings were built without Israeli permits. The buildings are in Areas G, which means that they are under complete Israeli control according to Oslo Agreement. Area G comprises 60% of the West Bank. It has 240,000 settlers and 70,000 Palestinians. The UN study surveyed the demolishing of 124 Palestinian buildings only in the first quarter of this year. In comparison, 107 Palestinian buildings were demolished during the entire year of 2007. Official surveys show that the occupation authorities gave licenses to build homes only to 6% of applicants during the past 7 years. More than 1,500 homes have been demolished out of the 5,000 homes whose owners received notifications that their homes will be demolished. According to recent surveys by the Israeli human rights organization Bet Shalom, Jewish settlers received 3,000 notifications that their homes will be demolished, of which only 7% was actually carried out. The Bet Shalom report did not only provide statistics, it also accused the Israeli government of using what it called a policy of silent, forceful migration.
And welcome to IBA News, coming to you from Jerusalem. High drama at the Jerusalem District Court today as American millionaire Morris Talansky, suspected of making large cash transfers to Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, testified in a pre-trial deposition. During the proceedings, State Attorney Moshe Ledor presented evidence raising suspicions that Talansky helped cover hundreds of thousands in debts occurred by an organization promoting Olmert's candidacy for Jerusalem mayor. Talansky said he gave Olmert $150,000 out of pocket over a period of 15 years, causing speculations that some of it went to purchase luxury items. The American businessman testified that he also asked for Olmert's help to market minibars to a number of hotels. IBA's Viva Press has the details.
Testifying in English, Morris Talansky told prosecutors that he admired Ehud Olmert before he became prime minister. He supported him politically, loved him, and wanted to help him, so he gave him money. He said there were no records of how the money he transferred was spent. Prosecutors hoped to learn from the deposition whether Talansky received something in return for the cash he transferred. The 75-year-old New York resident said he began giving money to Olmert in 1993 when the latter ran for Jerusalem mayor. According to his testimony, cash-filled envelopes were usually transferred through Olmert's former bureau chief, Shula Zaken. On occasion, the money was given directly to Olmert. The witness said that he was told the money was needed for expenses, which he thought meant campaign needs, such as advertising and posters. However, Talansky also told the court that he gave Olmert a loan of $30,000 for a family holiday in Italy and that the money was never paid back. He knows that some money was also spent on expensive cigars, pens, and first-class flights. Talansky emphasized that he gave Olmert money because of his great respect for him. Talansky said words could not describe how much he cherished their friendship. Talansky said he identified with Olmert's ideology regarding Israel and Zionism. Olmert and Zaken were not present in court during Talansky's deposition. Defense attorneys representing Olmert and Zaken said they will not cross-examine Talansky at this time, as they still need to examine the material collected by investigators in the case. The defense has said it would like Talansky to return to Israel at a later date for his cross-examination. State prosecutor Moshe Ledor said that Olmert is suspected of fraud, breach of trust, tax violations, and violations of the gifts law, and failure to report his receipts of cash while he was Minister of Industry and Trade as required by law. Ledor told reporters in the courthouse it was too early to determine whether an indictment would be sought against Olmert. He said there is a possibility that the case could be closed, and there is also a possibility that another decision will be made. This is Viva Press for IBA News.
We're now joined in the studio by Middle East expert Dr. Jonathan Spire. Dr. Spire, thanks for coming in this evening. Israel's used to getting and exchanging far more prisoners in these prisoner exchange deals. Why is Hezbollah asking for a relatively small number of prisoners in this deal?
There are two ways to look at this. One of them is a little bit more optimistic. The other, I'm afraid, is rather pessimistic. The more optimistic side is to say that Hezbollah, in a sense, have softened their demands. Initially, they were in favor of asking for the release of a very large number of Palestinian prisoners, in addition to the Lebanese prisoners, which they're asking for, Qatar and the others. And there is a sense in which they have come down from some of those demands because Israel was refusing to relate to that and was insisting that Palestinian prisoners will be released possibly in a deal for Gilad Shalit with Hamas, but not in the issue in Lebanon. That's the more optimistic side. I'm afraid the more pessimistic aspect to this, of course, is that if indeed we are talking about such a small number of Lebanese prisoners, this raises the possibility that the two kidnapped Israeli soldiers may in fact not be among the living, and this would explain the small number of Lebanese people which Hezbollah is asking for in return.
An organization dubbed Youth of Heaven, which includes boys between the ages of 11 and 16 years old, has expanded its operations to include the capital of Baghdad. This group is linked with the Al-Qaeda organization in Iraq. Young boys appeared in a videotape announcing their living testaments before they carry out their suicide operations. Details in this report by Majid Hamid.
Many different groups emerged out of the Al-Qaeda organization in Iraq since 2005. The most prominent one is Faylaq Omar, which was formed to fight against Shiite militias. Today, however, after the awakening councils announced that they were fighting against Al-Qaeda, the latest new formation includes young boys and children who are known as the Youth of Heaven. The group aims to kill the leaders of the awakening councils through suicide and other operations, as what occurred yesterday in the Taramiya region in northern Baghdad. The Youth of Heaven organization is made up of groups of no more than 5 children whose ages range between 11 and 13. Information indicates that the leaders of this organization take refuge in agricultural areas far from the cities, specifically in the Taji and Taramiya regions, for training. They are also active in the unstable province of Diyala and Mosul. However, today they have extended into Amiriya and Azmiya areas in the capital, Baghdad.
He who does not battle or find the means to fight for God is committing a kind of hypocrisy. My brothers in God, fight for the sake of God. Invade for the sake of God.
There are indications that the organization created a brigade dubbed Al-Qaeda Cadets in mid-2006 to recruit suicide bombers among young Iraqi boys to compensate for the shortage of foreign fighters. Its headquarters was in Al-Arab al-Jabur area and Dora in southern Baghdad. The brigade was headed by Abu Hamza al-Iraqi, the replacement of Abi Inas al-Shami. The announcement about the Youth of Heaven came after the suicide operations which were carried out by women against the awakening councils. The use of young boys and female suicide bombers in Al-Qaeda may indicate that the organization is passing through tough times after it had sustained many losses in various parts of Iraq.
A parliament member representing the Iraqi Accordance Front said that the Mother of Two Springs military operation is satisfactory to the people and political parties, parliament members, government agencies, as well as the Central Command of the Armed Forces. He added that the operation has avoided past mistakes, including those that took place in Baghdad and Basra, despite rumors saying otherwise. Therefore, this military operation, dubbed as the Mother of Two Springs, has official and public support. On a related topic, a spokesman for the Ministry of Interior, Major General Abdul Karim al-Khalaf, said that joint police and army forces arrested 56 wanted individuals in Jazeera and Baj in Mosul. He added that large quantities of weapons were confiscated and that the military operation was carried under Iraqi and American air cover. On Sunday morning, the American occupation forces raided 2 homes in Martyrs Square in northern Tikrit. According to Baghdad Satellite Channel's reporter, the occupation forces completely burned down the first home after getting its inhabitants out. The American forces arrested its occupants and took sums of money from the people who lived in the house. These forces then carried another unjustified operation when they used sound bombs to raid the house next door. These bombs caused a great deal of damage to the house. 2 residents of the house were arrested. All the 5 people who were arrested were taken away. No justification was given for the arrests.
They came in and I prayed they would not take the rest. They took my 2 sons and son-in-law.
The Iranian people commemorated the 26th anniversary of Khorramshahr's liberation from the occupation of the previous Iraqi regime. The occasion was commemorated with cultural and artistic events about the city's history and the bravery of the fighters who participated in the city's liberation.
26 years have passed since the liberation of the Iranian city of Khorramshahr. The Iranian people still organize events and activities to celebrate this occasion. They consider it the largest Iranian victory in the 8-year war that was launched by Saddam Hussein's regime, supported by regional and international powers.
وقد تم إضاءة سماء هذه المدينة الواقعة جنوب غرب إيران بالألعاب النارية.
The sky of this southwestern Iranian city lit up with fireworks for many hours. The citizens of Khorramshahr expressed their joy with poetry, festivals and photo galleries depicting the liberation battle. Important figures in the city recounted their stories about fighters' bravery during the occupation. The war went on for 19 months, even though the city's inhabitants lacked the simplest military and defense equipment.
6,000 square kilometers were liberated and 19,000 people were taken prisoner. Imam al-Khomeini called the day the liberation of supreme Islamic values, not only the liberation of the land. To celebrate, the citizens organized festivities and events to commemorate the bravery of the fighters.
He bombed the city and left nothing. He even uprooted the palm trees. He directed the cannons at houses, whether there were families inside or not. And when he struck, he destroyed everything. People climbed up to the rooftops and used locally made weapons. The things that Saddam did to the people, everyone damns him.
The graves of the martyrs in Khorramshahr and other cities in Khuzestan witnessed an exceptional day. Thousands of Iranians visited the graves of the liberation martyrs. Khorramshahr used to be one of the most beautiful ports and cities in Iran, but the occupation destroyed it, and its people were dispersed. The Iranian army, supported by the National and Reserve Guards, were able to liberate the city in a military operation called Bayt al-Maqdis.
The liberation of Khorramshahr was a turning point in the war. This caught the attention of military experts in the world because the liberation of the city seemed militarily impossible. The previous Iraqi president, Saddam Hussein, had said that if the Iranian people could liberate Khorramshahr, he would give them the keys of al-Basra. But God was with the Iranian people and helped them to win this great war.
Khorramshahr is currently witnessing a rebuilding phase. Now its people have returned. The Iranian government paid attention to the rebuilding of what the war machine destroyed. The people of Khorramshahr look forward to a bright future. The railroad project connecting their city with the district of Al-Basra has entered into the implementation phase. The border commercial zone at Al-Shamalkha passing is open, and the port, which is the lifeline of economic life in Khorramshahr, has been rebuilt and reopened.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.